coming from Manhattan, going towards Northern Boulevard, and there's always traffic there. So where I started a sudden stop, and then just crash.
Philip Garcia was driving to Home Depot when this heavy, rusty bolt fell on the roof of his car, missing him only by inches. It happened around 9 a.m. near the corner of Jackson Avenue and Queens Plaza South, right underneath the train tracks for the NW lines.
You hear glass shatter, and then you go outside, look, it's a huge hole under the sunroof.
Garcia is a contractor. He measured the 6-inch bolt for us. Netting on the inside of the car caught the bolt, which would have fallen in his back seat, where his daughter normally sits.
It's shocking initially, but once you realize you're okay, it's just damage to the car. It is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to be afraid to drive through the bridge again, but it's definitely a shock because you don't expect something like this to happen. If somebody was walking in that area, this isn't, this just hit glass and you can see the damage that it did. Imagine somebody, their head.
Councilmember Jimmy Van Bramer has called on the MTA to install netting under the elevated train tracks after a number of incidents involving falling debris. Earlier this year, this large piece of wood fell from the 7 train tracks and pierced the windshield.
I'm extremely angry for the people that I represent and the people of New York City because people have to worry about getting to and from work and home every day on time because of train service that isn't reliable. But even worse is to think that you could get killed simply by walking underneath the train.
In a statement, the MTA said in part, metal containers like the ones at that section of the NW line are specifically designed to catch bolts at rail joints such as the one that fell today. We are investigating how and why the bolt came loose and was not caught by the system as designed. So the city wants to put a netting underneath these elevated train tracks. I mean, you can see how high the bolt was before it fell onto Mr. Garcia's car. The MTA has set aside about $350 million to set up that netting, but it still has to get approved, and there's no set timeline on when that will actually happen. Video caught on a neighbor's surveillance camera obtained by Pix 11 News appears to show the aircraft as it was coming down. The aftermath of the crash was caught on this video posted on social media. A neighbor also took this picture showing a home fully engulfed in flames.
It was like a volcano. There was a lot of flames. I seen a lot of flames, a lot of smoke. And then somebody came out and said a plane just hit.
Officials say the Cessna 414 struck 88 Berkeley Avenue in Colonia, New Jersey around 11 a.m. Miraculously, nobody was home and no one on the ground was killed. The 2 adjacent houses have been damaged. One person was at one of those adjacent homes but was not physically injured. This man knows the families who are affected.
We're very close with our neighbors. We called them right away. Everybody's a little distraught over this. It's kind of like one of those things like, did this really just happen? It's just kind of one of those things, you think through how lucky you are.
The only person on board the aircraft was the pilot. The crash happened less than 5 miles from Linden Airport, where the aircraft was heading to land from Leesburg, Virginia.
So right now, thank God, nobody was hurt on the ground. The pilot is believed to be still in the plane. I would just say a prayer.
So again, sadly, officials are confirming that the pilot did die. NTSB investigators currently briefing the media as we speak. We will have the very latest on all of this coming up at 10 o'clock. Live in New Jersey, I'm Christian Benavides, Pix 11 News.
It's an incredible story. We look forward to that update, Christian. Thank you. All right, New York City Transit President Andy Byford just went to the scene of a falling subway debris in Queens. Yet another close call with cars and
Ultimately, it was the pilot, Timothy McCormick's decision alone to take off on the doomed twin-engine helicopter that crash-landed on top of the AXA Equitable Center building on 7th Avenue. Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board are now piecing together what happened during the 11 minutes between takeoff and the fatal crash.
One of the most interesting concerns we have is gathering as much information about the weather. Should the helicopter have been flying? I don't know yet.
We now know the flight took off from Westchester County at 11:30 a.m. and dropped off a passenger at 11:45 at the 34th Street heliport on the east side of Manhattan. The pilot waited nearly 2 hours until 1:30 to finally take off on his way to Linden, New Jersey. Officials say the aircraft, which was in restricted airspace when the accident happened, never requested permission from air traffic control to fly in that area.
The pilot was not in communication with ATC, nor was he required to contact ATC for his planned route of flight. We think his route of flight did not go as planned, and he may have ventured into airspace requiring that he contact air traffic control.
While it's still unclear how the crash happened, McCormick, who was a volunteer fire chief for the East Clinton Fire Department, saved lives by crash landing on the roof and not a busy Midtown street.
Tim will be exceptionally missed by his department members, not only for his leadership, but his wonderful sense of humor. Rest in peace, brother.
And for now, investigators plan to bring parts of the wreckage down from the building's elevator while the investigation continues. It could last up to 24 months. Hi there, Kaidi, and take a look. This is the actual aircraft that was used in that rescue. The NYPD quickly jumping into action, saving that woman who right now is lucky to be alive.
We have a possible person under the boat.
Here is the moment members of the Air Sea Rescue Unit from the NYPD saved a woman who was trapped inside a boat that had capsized. The call came in right before 6 in the evening. FDNY, along with NYPD, set up a staging area at City Island in the Bronx. Detective Brian Mullen from the NYPD scuba team describes the rescue.
There was a lot of debris, cushions, fishing line, fishing poles, nets. I slowly start to make a clear way through, at which point I see a pair of feet. I grabbed the foot and the foot moved, at which time I put her down through the hatch, hand her off to Officer Roche, and then he takes her to the surface and onto a nearby vessel.
Police officer James Roach then took over.
Grabbed her and swam her to the surface. She was moving a little bit, but not panicking. At that point, I looked for the nearest boat and took her there, which happened to be the fire department boat.
Detective Chris Marr was the pilot.
It was gusting, so we have to take that into account, whether that's pushing the boat from its original location, also for aircraft performance.
At least 5 other people were on the boat when it capsized, but they were ejected onto the water. The woman rescued by this team was the only one trapped in the boat.
Whenever you get a chance to do this, it's very fulfilling. This is why we're here.
No word on the woman's identity. We do know that all of those who were on the boat were taken to local hospitals, but overall, a great job by the NYPD that once again saved this woman's life.